The name of this song is "To Make You Feel My Love." It was recorded by Jeff Tuttle.
But I will never do you wrong. I've known it from the moment that we met. No matter what I feel hungry, I feel glad. I feel cold down there. There's nothing I wouldn't do to make you feel my love. On the stage and on the road in the sea, and on the highway of regret, the winds of change roll wild and free. You ain't seen nothing like me yet. I could only have you now. I could call you now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin McCarty, and on behalf of the Tuttle family, welcome to Oak Hill. We would like to begin today, first of all, by thanking each of you for being here to pay tribute to our friend Jeff. And on behalf of Jeff's wife, Galena, his children, Victoria, Ricky, and Anna, his folks, Dick and Sally, his sisters, Andrea, Anna, and Cindy, his brother, Rags, and his brothers-in-law, Dick and John, and all of his nieces and nephews, thank you for being here. It means a lot. Of course, in addition to the Tuttle family, Jeff had a very large extended family made up of many friends. Everybody's here today. While growing up, Jeff spent a lot of time up at our house here in Oak Hill and was basically like another McCartney brother. In fact, Mom and Dad thought so much of Jeff Tuttle, truth be known, that they would proudly claim him before all of us. And that's the truth. But today we're gathered here as a large extended family made up of classmates, schoolmates, office mates, roommates, bunkmates, and shipmates. Some of us have hiked in the hills with Jeff, or perhaps played Islander softball with him. Maybe you swam in the rivers, or camped in the mountains with Jeff. Or maybe you dug in the dirt with him for arrowheads, old bottles or coins, pipes, bugs, or gold. Whatever your memory may be, the fact is we remember and honor him today. One of my favorite things to do here in Oak Hill growing up was to listen to Jeff, Brother Phil, and Mike DeLegas play music. I know many of you share those same memories. Jeff had a very unique way of settling in to play his guitar. You can kind of see him now. He would sort of wrap himself around, let that guitar swallow him up in his arms, and then he would play. Today we will remember Jeff through the music that he loved and through the stories told from his family and his friends. And so now we begin with a song from my brother, Phil McCartney, and Jeff's brother, Rags Tuttle.
I know you're lying on the road. Only you know whatever you face down. Was no stranger to the rain. Glory time. Some go to hell, love the border, love for the sun. Oh, how they left us gathered round the grave, which I could see when they your sweet voice sang, glory high. Son, your word on earth is done. Go to hell, love for the Father and the Son. Son, your word on earth is done. Go to hell, love for the Father and the Son. Go to hell, love for your Father, love for your Son.
Good afternoon. I'm told that we're supposed to give self-introductions. So I am Tom Tryon. I am a member of the Board of Supervisors. I was elected in 1984 and assumed office in 1985. And I assumed office, Jeff Tuttle was county council. You may all now take a deep sigh of relief. I have not been asked to sing, but just to relate over the last 26 years some experiences with Jeff. Jeff was more than just a professional friend. He was also a personal friend. He brought his band over to my daughter Elizabeth's wedding and sang cowboy songs. And at the wedding there on the ranch in Angels Camp, we had lots of local people. And I don't know, for a month afterwards, they would come up to me and say, I can't believe you have the district attorney there singing cowboy songs at Elizabeth's wedding. And I said, oh yes. Jeff is a multi-talented individual. And Jeff was a multi-talented individual. He had outside hobbies and pursuits, including singing. But as I look back at Jeff and say, well, what does my association with Jeff, what do I bring forward with it? I look back and I think a lot of Jeff's character. Because when you think of character, you think of honesty and integrity And Jeff certainly embodied those virtues. But more than that, he was very educated and he was very intelligent. And we had lots of crises, for lack of a better word, over the last 26 years as County Government Center, and lots of crises when he was County Council. And you could always count on Jeff to give you a very reasoned, thoughtful analysis of the issues. And Jeff was very heavily relied upon by the Board of Supervisors in his years for County Council. And even after he left, briefly for the private sector, and then came back as public defender, and then as district attorney, often I would go over and visit with Jeff because we had the working relationship from his county council days, and I would ask him about issues in county government. So Jeff was not only intelligent and reasoned, he was highly educated, and he was well respected throughout county government center. And you know, as you reflect on Jeff and sort of the crises and the waves, etc., he was always a firm hand at the tiller of the ship. And he was someone that didn't get caught up in the emotion of the moment, but had foresight. He was always positive. You know, this crisis will pass. We make the right decisions. Times will be better. He always made his recommendations in what he perceived to be the public interest. I don't know of any time or anybody that ever accused Jeff of having anything other than the public interest at heart when he made decisions. He will leave a significant void the government center. He was, frankly, the last of the old leadership guard of government center from when I came on board. I don't know quite where that leaves me now that Jeff is no longer with us, but Jeff transcended just a department head status. He was sort of the senior statesman of county government in San Andreas, and he was respected by all so to hold that status, and his comments, whether a budget or whether he would take us aside individually or whether I would go over individually to talk to him about county issues. His comments and his recommendations were given a great amount of weight. And you know, as I look back, I've lost not only friendship, but I have lost a good counsel. And in politics, it's hard to find good counsel. And quite frankly, Jeff was the best of counsel. I offer my prayers to the family and hope the good Lord will be with you. Thank you. I'm supposed to introduce the next speaker, and I would just like to say that in the last campaign, I was campaigning, and I decided, well, I'll attend a Rotary meeting in Murphy's. And this gentleman was the president of the Rotary Club. And when the folks in Murphy found out he was a good friend of mine, it almost cost me the election. So I'm happy to introduce David Studley.
I fear that might be a true story. Lena, Dick, Sally, the Tuttle families, and just many, many friends. We join today as mourners to grieve a life too short, but in so doing, to commemorate how Jeff's presence among us enriched the soul. Jeff was a man in the fullness of life, curious, intelligent, compassionate, devoted to his family, dedicated to his community. He was my friend. Now you might think that's not too surprising. Both of us were lawyers. Both of us talked the same peculiar language. Phrases like burden of proof and reasonable doubt occasionally crossed our lips. But look around you. Few of us, thankfully, are lawyers. But we were all Jeff's friends. Whatever your background, however you became acquainted with Jeff, Jeff was your friend. He genuinely liked you. And we all genuinely liked Jeff. That, I think, was the essence of the man. He was a likable person. You wanted to be around him. Warm, affable, engaging, genial. Jeff's absence will leave a void that is not easily filled in our lives. Dick Tuttle asked me to talk about one of Jeff's passions, the Calaveras County Historical Society. Jeff became a member of the Historical Society, actually a lifetime member, in 1981, when he was 30 years old. Few of us demonstrate the love of our shared history at so young an age. But this too distinguished Jeff from many of the rest of us. I became acquainted with Jeff when we shared seats as directors of the Historical Society. He was first elected in 2005. He served as vice president the following year, and in 2007 became the president of the Calaveras County Historical Society, where he served for 2 years. Rather than leaving the board after his presidency, he continued on and was proudly serving as its vice president again at the time of his passing. Jeff was devoted to the Historical Society's best interests. He had many interests that he served while a member of the society, but one of the interests that I remember most fondly was his love for the bookstore. Jeff and I sat on the bookstore committee, and Jeff was unique in that instead of worrying about how many visitors we had and how much money we were taking in and how much our margin was on the books, he liked to suggest books that people should read. He was particularly proud of the fact that the National Audubon Society series of books, you've seen them, Wildflowers and Birds and so forth, that he recommended that we carry those books in our bookstore, and they became one of our best sellers. He was always interested in geology. I think he probably had every book on geology that we had in the bookstore. And, Jeff was so easygoing about everything. Just a week ago last Tuesday, we were at an Historical Society board meeting, and Gary Hurd and I were kidding Jeff about his professed certainty that he found a new vein of the mother lode that was going to yield pure ore. Gary and I kind of kidded him and said, well, we might salt that mine and get you out there working, Jeff. And he said, don't bother, I've already got gold fever. And he did. He was a passionate man. I might also mention, as long as I'm plugging the bookstore, that if any of you want to see a picture of Jeff with hair, you might pick up a copy of the Northern Calaveras County history, and you'll see that Jeff was part of the championship McCullum Hill tug of war team. I think today he'd probably been prouder of his participation in the tug of war team than his hair, but I don't really know. Jeff's dedication to the Historical Society was remarkable. For that reason, I am pleased to tell all of you today that the Board of Directors of the Historical Society has voted to place a memorial tile at the Red Barn Museum to commemorate in perpetuity Jeff's commitment and service to our organization. I'd like to conclude my remarks, if I might, with a quote that reminds me of Jeff. It's from The Great Gatsby. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him. Some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life, as if he were related to one of those intricate machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away. This responsiveness had nothing to do with that flabby impressionability which is dignified under the name of the creative temperament. It was an extraordinary gift for hope, a romantic readiness such as I have never found in any other person, and which it is not likely that I shall ever find again. To me, that epitomizes Jeff. Goodbye, my friend. I wish you well. I'd like to now introduce Steve Rowland, President of Local Attorney, colleague, and President of the Bar Association. Steve.
Thank you, David. I just have a feeling that Jeff wouldn't really appreciate the attorneys up here wearing suits and ties. I think he'd feel more that we would be more at ease in Hawaiian shirts. I couldn't make it out of the house today with my Hawaiian shirt. But I'm here today on behalf of the Calaveras County Bar Association. The members of the Bar Association wish really to express their grief over their friend and fellow member of his untimely death. Jeffrey served as past president of the Bar Association for approximately 4 years in an organization that has been in existence formally for almost 100 years. The Bar Association was first organized officially in 1909 and has been meeting together regularly. Jeffrey again served as Bar Association president for 4 years and was a regular attender at our meetings. We always appreciated him showing up. We appreciated his sense of humor and lightheartedness that he brought to, as you can imagine, sometimes meetings that were tended to be monotonous in scope and character. Jeffrey chose to give his time, even though he was already overburdened with other matters in his life. But again, like so many other organizations, felt free to give his time to participate in functions, organize functions, and just be a general supporter of our group. We're going to remember his friendly and kind spirit that he brought to our group, but always punctuated with a rather large smile and sense of humor that he brought. It was a privilege serving with Jeff as a member myself on the Bar Association for many years and attending with Jeff those many functions. We really want to join together and hope that Jeff's family will derive some comfort knowing that we share the grief too with the family that has lost Jeff. Jeff, we're going to miss you. Jeff, thanks for a job well done in serving your another local organization, the Calaveras County Bar Association.
And with all these friends and lovers, there's no one who compares with you. And these memories lose everything when I make love. There's something new, and I know I'll never look back. For people and things that went before, and I know all the things about it in my love. And I know I'll never lose you much. For people and things that went before, and I know all the things about it in my
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Osborne. I'm an attorney, I'm here in, Jeff and I were at the public defender's office together from 1997 to 2001. We were law partners. I first came up here in 96 and as a public defender, as a defense attorney. Jeff was working in the DA's office then, and I had a few cases with him. He impressed me as a sharp attorney, a guy who knew how to put on a case, a guy who knew how to defend the case, and I was extremely delighted when he said that he'd like to join me in a bid for the public defender's contract. So, to work out the details, Jeff came down to where I was living in Watsonville on Sunday, and we sat down at the kitchen table, and we started the negotiations, and I said, well, how about 60-40 for me, because I got a lot more experience and I'll be carrying more of the load. He said 50-50. I said, well, all right. And I said, but I really hate doing those cases where they take the kids away. He says, okay, I'll do them. And then we talked about how we should have the name on the sign outside the office, Tuttle and Osmer, Osmer and Tuttle, so we flipped the coin, and it was Tuttle and Osmer, and then we had sandwiches. And this kind of hard-nosed, take-no-prisoners negotiation was something that characterized our relationship right till the very end. You know, this is the point at which you usually haven't been law partners if someone tells some stories about courtroom theatrics or how he handled this particular case or how he did something in the appellate court, but that wasn't, although he was capable of all of that, he was a good attorney, that wasn't the most unique aspect of Jeff. What it was about Jeff that set him apart was his patience and kindness to people he was serving, people he was representing. You know, when you're a defense attorney, you can't always help people that come to you. Sometimes there's simply nothing to do. And as a public defender, you can't always even pick the people that you're not able to help. So you took them as you found them. The thing about Jeff was he would treat these people like a human being, listen to them patiently, and help them out. And I can tell you, after someone came to the office and had that first meeting with him, or went back to their cell after having the first meeting with him at the jail, they went back with a much lighter step and a much lighter heart because he simply listened patiently and treated them like a human being. And that, it may sound like something you'd expect of anybody, but of all the attorneys I've seen, he was the guy that could really do it. I was, when I started thinking about this, what to say about it, and there's so many things, and I didn't know how to approach it. But the one thing that
stuck out in that 4 years that we had together was that we had a lot of laughs in that office. We had some hard cases, we had some troubles, but we had a lot of laughs. And knowing that Jeff was an anthropologist, I thought I'd approach it from that viewpoint and look at some of the artifacts that were around that I could tell you about that typified the practice. The first thing that came to mind was the flypaper strip with the bat on it. Right after we started work, Jeff had a client who something had happened at his residence, and it was truly a humble abode. It was somewhere up on Tewksbury Road. It might even have been just an entry to an old mine. But Jeff went out there to look over the scene and was riveted by a sight that he saw there. It was a long flypaper strip covered with the corpses of mosquitoes and flies. It was actually really filled up. It was a good flypaper. But in addition to that, it had the desiccated corpse of a juvenile bat on it. And as you know, Jeff, you know that would be the kind of thing that would attract him immediately. He politely asked the client if he could have the fly strip. The guy was a little bit surprised, but gave it to him. Jeff took it back to the office, hung it above his desk, and it stayed there for almost the whole 4 years. Another thing that was quite unique, we used to, Jeff had a habit of ordering things over the internet, both from the office and from home. But it was a high point of every day when the post office truck would arrive, or FedEx or UPS, bringing Jeff's latest purchase. There was a time that we had more guitars there than a Nashville museum. It was just covered with them. But I thought one of his most unique purchases was the Oddfellows regalia. I brought a picture of it, and it's up on the wall over there. For some strange reason, tour buses used to stop as they went up the hill on 49 going southbound, and they stopped right in front of our office. So Jeff and I immediately go get on our regalia, which consisted of, and Jeff had a purple full-length gown with a faux leopard collar and faux leopard sleeve. And I had a sergeant at arms jacket that was a lovely velvet green with a gold brocade. It was then Sir Walter Raleigh proud. We both took our swords and we do a dignified pose out in front. The tourists were always delighted. I always wondered what they said when they got back to Germany and told them about their visit to the mother lode. The other thing was the ostrich egg. One day we weren't either of us going to court, and he shows up with a large ostrich egg and alluded to the fact that it was fresh. He never went into the provenance of the egg to any extent, but he said it was fresh, and we decided we'd eat it. So, because it had a beautiful shell, it's a dark green, and we didn't want to crack it, and besides we couldn't crack it, it was really hard. So if you think about it, a guy who would bring in an ostrich egg for lunch would also have a Dremel tool in his desk with which to open the egg. And he did that, so we dumped the egg in the frying pan and cooked it with some cheese. And my wife Betty, Jeff, and I ate it, although our other secretary was not so sure of the provenance, and she decided not to have any. But of all the items, many of you have probably seen this. I know most of the people from the district attorney's office have seen it. His greatest purchase that he was proudest of was the remote control flatulence machine. It was a machine that made sounds, and you could use a remote control button and initiate it from another room if you chose. Well, we had our secretary was named Barbara Peterson, and I think purely by coincidence, Jeff brought the machine in on her birthday. He'd forgotten her birthday naturally, and so he presented it to her as her gift. And then he went to his office, and a little while later, either Betty or I went to the office and said, Jeff, that's not sitting too well with the Jeff kind of had this sad look on his face. Then he reached over and he got the instructions, and he pointed to the large print at the top of the page and said, we can tell her it's not just a flatulence machine, it's the world's best flatulence. We ended up taking Barbara out to lunch the next day and bought her a cake, obviously. That didn't do it. There was also the iguana. I was at the district attorney's office one day, and one of the secretaries there had a iguana in a box under her desk that she said her brother had found in a water meter in San Andreas. And you think about that, the iguana in a box under the desk, I'm thinking that must have been when Ron Krell was running the office. But without even thinking, I said, yeah, we'll take it. And, you know, I didn't need to ask. I knew Jeff would want a lizard or a mascot for our law office. So I took it back. The next day, Jeff shows up with PVC pipe, hardware wire, and zip ties, and just like that, made a cage that iguana stayed in for the next 3 years. He was the centerpiece of our office. You know, if as an anthropologist you were looking at this thing and saying, it sounds like these guys spent their time fooling around, doing nothing. These artifacts that lead you in that direction, I have to concede that. But we did a lot of good, and we helped a lot of people. As corny as it might seem, we defended the Constitution. But one last artifact that I'd like to mention to you, and it's a sad one for me, but still, since it was drafted by Jeff, it's funny too. And I've kept it not because it has any legal significance, but because I felt it was a document written by the best law partner anybody could ever ask for. It's very short, I'll read it to you. It's an agreement terminating partnership. The undersigned partners in the law office of Tuttle and Osmer agree as follows. Effective June 1st, 2001, the partnership of the law office of Tuttle and Osmer, memorialized by that agreement dated July 1st, 1997, in San Andreas, California, shall be terminated. Very official up to this point, but he goes on. All of the assets of the partnership, including the iguana jack and the remote flatulence machine, shall belong to Gerald M. Osmer, and after June 1st, 2001, the record shall also be his. Like I said, best partner anybody could hope for. Thank you. I'd also like to introduce Barbara here. And Barbara gave me leave to mention a story in which she and Jeff, when she was at the DA's office and Jeff was the public defender, had a bit of a contretemps at the office. They were arguing over a domestic violence case, and it was a situation where Jeff, I believe, was accused of taking a typical male chauvinist view of the thing, and they were saying that they were a little more sensitive, and it was Quinny Nalmacido and Barbara Youth, and Jeff looked indignant for a minute and then leaned over and told them, I'm more of a woman than either of you two. Barbara Youth.
The quote was actually, I'm more of a woman than the two of you combined. So. And, you know, we never knew exactly what that meant. But I knew that it was going to be a lot of fun working with him, and it really was. Dick asked me to say a few words on behalf of the DA's office, and, you know, we all know you don't know the Dick, so here I am, and it's my great honor to be here on behalf of the DA's office. Jeff was our leader for 10 years, but more importantly to us, he was. He guided us, taught us, and took care of us. He always told us to do the right thing, even if it wasn't popular at the moment. I think what we will miss most, however, is how he made us laugh. And I tried really hard to come up with some examples, but I knew there would be children present, so you'll just have to imagine. Jeff used to like to say that he did not roll our office with an iron fist, but with a velvet fist. And I actually suggested that we put those banners that you sometimes see across the flyer saying, we'll miss you, velvet fist. but other than that, one might be a bit awkward. Jeff approached the practice of law with his substantial experience and intelligence, and he never forgot to apply the human element. He recognized that, like many things in life, the law is not black and white, but full of varying shades of gray. He believed that reasonable minds could differ widely and accepted both sides. He believed in fairness and had a strong sense of justice. He believed in public service and the importance of community. He was so smart and had done so many things in his life, but he never bragged. He was very humble and never arrogant. Jeff was so much more than just a brilliant lawyer. He had so many interests, and every time he walked into his office, he was reminded of that. He always had his own guitar. Sometimes he had the latest finds from his explorations and hiking around the motel on my property, maybe a ball, maybe a rock, something like that. The lighted water. I think one time there was a snake. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there was a snake in the office at one point. It was probably even that out, but the snake was there for a little while. I think my favorite item, however, was this big chunk of what he claimed to be dinosaur poop. He had it right in the middle of his desk, and he used it as a paperweight for a while, but it was quite right there. It was just there on his desk. Despite all his experience and knowledge, he always remained curious and open-minded. Those qualities made him a great listener. When you talk to Jeff, he listens to you without any pretense, bias, or preconceived emotions. This way, I think he was really able to hear what you were saying and really understand what you were saying and where you were coming from. And sometimes you would figure out what you wanted when you were there, even if you hadn't figured it out for yourself yet. Perhaps even greater than his ability to listen was a way that he could relate to just about anyone and make them feel better. As you can imagine, there were times when we would be meeting with people who were distraught, victims of hate, or people who were angry because we hadn't done one thing or the other. And at some point during the conversation, Jeff would invariably crack some highly inappropriate but hilarious joke. And while the rest of us were thinking, oh my God, I can't believe you said that, and holding our breath and thinking, what's going to happen next, there was never any reason to fear. It always worked. Somehow he was always able to make a connection, which is what everyone he talked to. He made people feel important and made them feel better. To his staff, his jokes helped us break the tension on our difficult caseloads, but more importantly, it always reminds us not to take ourselves too seriously. Jeff cared deeply about his family. He cared about justice. He cared about our community, and he let us know every day that he cared about all of us as beings. I think that all that caring left little time for him to care about whether or not his shirt was tucked in, or whether or not he had put scotch tape on his glasses to keep them together. And if he didn't have scotch tape, the paperclip and the pin part to hold them on until he get them fixed. We were so happy when Jeff decided to start the family. It was neat to watch him embark on this latest adventure. We had some debates in the office of whether or not it was indeed a good idea to let the kids watch horror movies. It was fun to watch his children, especially who had that special ability to see things through their eyes. Not only did we have Jeff, but he brought them and the kids into our family. On behalf of the DA's office, we are grateful for the time we had with him as our fearless leader and treasured, quirky, true friend. We will miss him beyond words.
Thank you, Barbara. As Phil and Rags are assembling for another song, just a couple of announcements, I guess. Chris Bittler is compiling a collection of your memories of Jeff. And there's, in the back, if you feel like writing something and leaving it today, that would be great. Otherwise, there's cards with an address, either email or mailing address. So if you have a memory of Jeff, and we all have a bunch, they're being compiled for Jeff's kids. So it would be great if you took some time to do that. Anyway, so that's one thing. And then yesterday, John Garamendi Jr. presented, I think Jack is here today, he was representing his dad, and he presented 3 flags to Jeff's kids. The flags were flown last week over the Capitol, and they are accompanied by a congressional resolution paying tribute to Jeff and his long commitment to public service. So I wanted to thank Jack for taking care of that on behalf of his dad. Now we're going to hear a song from Rags.
Jeff Tuttle left us in a hurry. Death without warning is shocking to family and friends. There are no goodbyes, no emotional preparation, and no transition from healthy to sick to dying. Instead, Jeff was among us, and now suddenly, he's gone. The sorrow is crushing for parents, Dick and Sally, who never would wish to outlive their children. The loss of husband for Galena and father for Victoria, Ricky, and Anna is devastating. And for Andrea, Anna, Cindy, and Rags, the special bond with their brother is ended. For friends, the sadness is palpable. While Jeff left us in a hurry and too early, he did not live in a hurry. He savored his time with his children. He rubbed his head and noodled over old mining documents. He picked away at his guitar, bantering with Phil McCartney in his newly invented language, frontier gibberish. He had a rich interior life to go with a busy, active life. Jeff was part scientist and part amused observer of life's absurdities. His curious mind was grounded in the world around him, the rocks, the trees, the animals, and the people, including the people who walked the earth thousands of years ago. Jeff propounded a theory of human evolution. Once upon a time, an early hominid picked up a rock, stood, and hurled it at a threatening animal. This development allowed him to ward off danger and gradually grow into Homo sapiens. Jeff wrote the theory in a seriously scientific paper, of course, but he also demonstrated the theory with a throwing motion suspiciously akin to Hall of Fame pitcher Juan Marichal of the San Francisco Giants. A man for all seasons, Jeff easily combined his love of sports with his love of science. Jeff affected others in his quiet, often humorous way. On hearing of his death, an old friend who couldn't be with us remembered Jeff from their college days. He looked up to his sister Andrea. He laughed with his sister Anna. He wanted to impress his younger siblings, Cindy and Raggy, as he was pleased when they asked him for his opinion and advice. He was a true liberal. He was fully aware of the underdog, as he took to heart, there but for the grace of God, go I. He wrote the book, or at least he contributed to Mad's snappy answers to stupid questions. He thought up ingenious inventions. He loved the beauty of the gold mining country. He liked to look at anthills. I wanted to be like Jeff. I wanted to be funny like Jeff. I wanted to be smart like Jeff. I wanted Jeff to think that I was smart. Jeff was a hero to me. I wonder if Jeff knew that. Good question. Did Jeff know the effect he had on people? If he knew how much he taught us and entertained us, why was he sometimes terribly sad? Though he battled his demons, Jeff was a confirmed rationalist, a dedicated, if sometimes daffy, Darwinist. Jeff did not invoke the supernatural or the divine. He did not live in expectation of another life. There is a football saying, they left it all on the field, meaning the players did not hold back any effort in the game in order to be rested for the next game. Jeff left it all on the field. There was no other world than this one. He wore himself out living this life. He would have wanted more time, but he lived fully. Jeff Tuttle seized his days. And now, Bob Caramendi.
Good afternoon. I'm going to give a little bit of history about Jeff. One of the earliest memories of Jeffrey Earl Tuttle was on the lower flat at the old schoolhouse in town here. A bunch of us kids were playing ball, and over against the fence near Doug Martin's house was Jeff with a butterfly net in hand, chasing after something. As you might imagine, this was an important juncture, not only in Jeff's life, but for all his kids as well. Who is this new guy? What's he doing with the butterfly net? What is a butterfly net? What is this guy doing in Moke Hill? To make a long story short, the following week, a half a dozen of us were running around with butterfly nets. And this was the beginning of a lifelong friendship. Curious. Curious is one of the words that describe Jeff. He was always curious. Curious about the world around him, the world within. Curious about things and how they got here and how they worked. Curiosity and an intense interest to learn would remain part of Jeff his whole life. As kids growing up in Moke Hill, we would take off and hike and explore the entire day, day in and day out. We were fortunate in that our parents didn't seem to worry as long as we showed up at the end of the day. These were times of great childhood adventures, covering miles over hill and dale, building forts, tree houses, collecting rocks, bird nests, artifacts, reptiles, amphibians, insects, climbing cliffs, into caves, fishing and swimming. This was a time of endless adventure. The stories are as endless as the adventures themselves. These were the years in which we had no worries. These were the best of times. In 1963, Jeff left Moke Hill on another journey, one that would lay the foundation for his social and political views. The Tuttle family moved first to San Francisco, where Dick worked for the State Public Utility Commission. Then in 1965, at the age of 14, during the height of the Civil Rights Movement, Jeff and his family moved to Mississippi, where his dad worked as a civil rights attorney. After a year in Mississippi, the family moved north to Massachusetts, where Dick was a fellow at Harvard's Kennedy Institute of Politics. In 1967, after 4 years on the road, having seen firsthand the struggles and conflicts of our country, Jeff and his family returned to the home in Moke Hill. It did not take long for Jeff to regain his swagger. When in 1968 he entered politics and was elected student body president at Calaveras High School. He was the second in a line of 4 consecutive student body presidents from Academy Hill. This was truly a renaissance period for Calaveras High. And a time of enlightenment. Jeff's administration is best summed up in the campaign slogan used by Phil McCartney in his run for student body president the following year: return to normalcy. It was during these years that Jeff, along with Phil McCartney, Mike Villegas, and Mike McCartney, plus several others, fine-tuned their musical talents. The sound of their guitars and the melody of their songs became commonplace. From Bob Dylan to Johnny Cash, from Buck Owens to the Beatles, from Jimmy Rogers to Crosby, Stills, and Ashley Young, the music became an essential and central part of Jeff's life. Countless nights were spent at Kate and Neil McCartney's home, on the hill overlooking Moke Hill, playing and singing until Kate would finally proclaim, "Damn it, you kids, enough is enough." And the crew would quickly disappear down the hill and into the garage, where the music would continue on into the wee hours of the morning. Because of the sensitivity that surrounds most of the adventures during these years, I'll forego the details, only to say we had a lot of fun. Upon graduation from Calaveras High, Jeff entered the University of California at Berkeley. These were turbulent times: the Vietnam War, student protests, National Guard crackdowns, People's Park, Kent State, assassination of Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, and Malcolm X. These were troubled times. This was the period in which the kids from Oak Hill were introduced to another world, and Jeff was leading the way. Jeff's tenure at Cal would provide an exchange of ideas and culture between the rural intellects of McElhenney Hill and the neophytes of Berkeley. This exchange manifested itself one night when on a road trip to Berkeley, several of us from McElhenney Hill were invited to attend a sociology class at a private residence. As the boys from Oak Hill chewed tobacco, drank wine from a gallon jug, and strummed the guitar singing Jimmy Rogers songs, the students from Berkeley sat in silence, realizing that such a culture still exists. Jeff was instrumental in bridging this cultural divide, and the boys of Oak Hill returned home with flowers in their hair. But due to the sensitive nature of the adventures during these years, I'll forego the details and only say we had a lot of fun. One aspect of Jeff's life that not too many people are aware of is the time he spent in the high country of Yosemite National Park as a mule packer and guide in Tuolumne Meadows working for Yosemite Park and Curry Company. Led to this beautiful land in the early 70s by Highland Pawnee of Oak Hill, a number of Oak Hill's finest worked for several seasons hauling people, supplies on horses and mules into some of the most majestic land in the world. This was just another example of Jeff's vast interests and the ability to change direction and excel. The now famous quote, 270 and a barley knife, was coined by Jeff during these adventurous times. But due to the sensitivity and nature of these adventures, I will forego the details, only to say we had a lot of fun. When Jeff began his career as an attorney, it did not deter him from those activities that interested him throughout his life. He did, however, take on new activities. As Chris and I began our family, one of the things our children looked forward to is when Jeff was able to perform babysitting duties. This is because as soon as Chris and I were out the door, all rules were suspended. He did a great job. He shared his many interests with them and taught them an appreciation for the world around them. But there are some effects of his kindness that still haunt the girls today. This is because Jeff would sneak horror movies, such as Bram Stoker's Dracula and Piranhas, into the house and watch them with the girls. Our girls even today share these stories of those days when they were left in charge of Jeff. We are so thankful for those times and grateful that our girls had the opportunity to get to know him so well. Jeff's curiosity and adventures continued throughout the 80s and 90s. Along with his unique and amazing disco dancing was the amazing success of his sports teams. During these years, Jeff was one of those fans whose level of acceptance of the world around him was based on the success of his teams. This aspect of Jeff's life reached an apex in the 80s, beginning on a cool December afternoon in the hall environs of Candlestick Park, where Jeff, along with a motley crew from McElhenney Hill, witnessed one of the most storied events in NFL history, the catch and the defeat of the Dallas Cowboys, and the beginning of a football dynasty. The following decade saw a weekly pilgrimage to the TV set to watch the 49ers go on to win 5 Super Bowls. Even though this too came to an end, it was a hell of an enjoyable ride. Jeff's other sports addiction was the San Francisco Giants, who achieved much less success but were equally captivating. Win or lose, watching his baseball team legends play the game was one of Jeff's life's pleasures. Watching the greats over the years, from Willie Mays to Barry Bonds, from Juan Marichal to Tim Lincecum, from the 84 road trip to spring training in Scottsdale to the 89 championship series with the Cubs, followed by the 89 Earthquake World Series. Jeff's participation in and enthusiasm for the game of baseball never waned. From being a founding director of the LCS Mining Company to raising and selling chameleons and geckos, from operating his underground radio station, KRAP, to working on his 57 Triumph, from playing marbles to searching for mastodons, from the Mokel Islanders to traveling the world, from hiding out with the Weasel Gang in Vince D'Angelo's Pizza Parlor in downtown Oak Hill to crewing a 70-foot sailing out in the Greek Isles, from founding the Mokel Institute of Technology to entertaining his friends with his music. There have been countless ventures over the past 50 years. and I, as many of you, were lucky enough to have him and share these adventures with him. But due to the sensitivity and nature of many of the events that were surrounding these years, I will forego the details, only to say that we had a lot of fun. His wit, his humor, his intellect, his kindness, and his friendship will be sorely missed. In closing, I want to pass along a few things that Jeff shared with me. First, those of you that work with Jeff in the DA's office, every time I'd ask Jeff, how's job is going, he would always have the same answer. Bob, he would say, you know, the trick is to have good people working with you. And I do. That makes my job easy. Jeff was very thankful of your loyalty, of your hard work, and he was very proud of you all. I want to thank the Tuttle family. Dick, Sally, Andrea, Anna, Cindy, Radix, for providing me and many of us here today the opportunity to have been part of Jeff's life. We will always cherish the adventures we shared with him. And I want to thank Jeff's family, Felina, Victoria, Ricky, and Anna. When most of us were folding up our tents, Jeff was just setting his up. Jeff was starting a new adventure, an adventure that would take him beyond any point he had ever experienced, an adventure second to none. A family. It was clear how important you were to him, how happy you made him, and how much he loved you.
Thanks, Bob. You captured it beautifully. But I think you took the Fifth Amendment about 4 times. Some want to see the attorneys pulling out their cards. That was great. I want to thank everyone who contributed to the memorial service today. I think it really summed up Jeff's life beautifully. A unique guy. What I'd like to do now, before I introduce Anna, who will be our final speaker, just let everybody know that the Tuttle family would like to invite everybody to walk down to the Protestant cemetery. And if you don't feel like walking, if you'd rather drive, because we're going to be walking down Main Street, down to Center Street, go on up to Highway 49, turn right, go down to the turnpike, turn right, and that'll drop you right into the cemetery. So the service will continue at the cemetery. Then after that, we'll be back here. And we have some food and some drink and some more stories. We're going to have a slideshow. We have a little technical difficulty, so we're going to show that during the reception afterwards. So we hope you can make it back there. So please do make it back. If you choose to stay here, however, because we have to turn the room, we're going to have to ask you to kind of step outside so we can set up the room for the lunch. So now, it is my pleasure to introduce Anna Tuttle, who will conclude the ceremony. Thank you.
You're going to have to forgive me for stumbling through this. I have not stood on this stage in front of an audience since the Kitty Capers. I am Anna, Jeff's younger sister by 2 years. And I want to thank you for being here and thank you for loving my brother. As you've heard, Jeff was not an ordinary person. My brother was a sailor, an actor, an entomologist, a breeder of captive chameleons, a guitar kicker, an illegal importer of Costa Rican poison frogs, an archaeologist, an alchemist, failed, and a lifelong student of human behavior. Because he was my big brother, I took direction from him. In childhood, I obeyed him with complete devotion. When we were a little older than Ricky and Anya, Jeff discovered an underground beehive in the front yard of our house in Auburn. It was capped by a large, flat slate rock he could not move by himself. He enlisted me to help him. I never thought to question him, and he promised me that if I stood utterly still, the bees would not sting me, because bees only sting moving people. We got into position, Jeff counted down, we heaved up the rock, and I did what I'd been told. I stood still and was blanketed by a swarm of stinging bees. Jeff ran like Jesse Owens. Some years later, we were still living in that older house with a steep staircase and a high balustrade when Jeff convinced me that in order to prove I wasn't a sissy, I should have a jumping off contest with him. He jumped from the balustrade at the top stair and landed on his feet. Following him, I jumped from the balustrade at the top stair and landed on my arm, which of course broke. In high school, we were probably 13 and 15. During some illicit after-dark activity, Jeff managed to light my hair on fire. When I realized my head was aglow and I panicked, patting out the flames, Jeff told me in that dry way he had, "Leave it alone, the fire looked really cool. It was giving me a halo." My extraordinary brother had a keen sense of the greater good. Jeff would not, however, direct me to reveal to you that he was also a poet, a scrupulous wordsmith who has written first-rate poetry for 30 years. If Jeff were with us today, he'd be sitting beside Phil with Ricky in his lap, making merciless jokes at my expense for doing what I'm about to do. I have appointed myself Jeff's literary executor, and I want to share a poem with you. Jeff's ironic wit, you all know this well, was unrelenting. But he could be simple and straightforward, and you know this too. Like his talented daughter Vika, Jeff didn't title his poems. His revisions suggest he never considered them finished. I will call this work in progress, Refuse the Pearly Gate. One thing I would pray, just give me until May. Denigrate what's behind the pearly gate. There's something that you do down here when April rolls around that beats St. Peter's streets of gold or any other ground. Snake lily twines among the branches winter has brought down. Hillsides glow with daisies, white meadow flowers foam. The leaves upon the old oak freshen to face another year. Eternity will have to wait. I'd rather be right here. Today, as we bury our brother in the April hills of the town he loved so much, I have a favor to ask. No, because you love Jeff, I have a commandment for you. On Jeff's behalf, and because you loved him, whenever you see these precious children Jeff has left behind, Vika and Ricky and Anya. I want you to let them know again and again and again that their daddy was thrilled by their absolute perfection. You hold them close, no matter where you find them, no matter how big they grow. At school, on the street, in the grocery store. You tell them their daddy knows how good and strong and smart and beautiful and perfect they are. You tell them their daddy sees their halos.
Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until no matter if it's stormy weather, we're always gonna keep our herd together. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails. Keep smiling until then. No matter if it's good or stormy weather, we're always gonna keep our herd together. So happy trails to you until we meet. I miss that one.